Hello there, everybody. Hello there. Welcome to the third installment of Surviving Death, my edition. So, today we are talking about Surviving Death, the Netflix show. And even if you don't have Netflix or haven't seen the show, you can still get some information out of this chat, if you will, because I've heard quite a few people say just that. So, hopefully, you'll learn some new things. You'll grow. You'll learn to understand some of the idiosyncrasies. Now, keep in mind, this is my point of view. And, oh, I'm Lisa Bousson, psychic medium. So, these are my points of view pertaining to over 30 years of professional mediumship, as well as talking to spirits since I was a little girl. And that's been a long time ago. I took a bunch of notes, as I always do, because I really found that today there was a lot information that I thought could be expanded upon. So, right off the beginning, I wonder if this show is a one season wonder, right? Because the episode is 6 episodes, or the show is 6 episodes long. And there could be so much more information that is gained or expanded upon. What a cool subject, right? Of course. And there's actually a lot of research being done on this, but I don't know, because of what's been shown on the show, how much is being done nowadays. Obviously there was a ton of stuff being done back then, and I do know some of the mediums that are on the show are present day, obviously, but I don't know how much research is being done upon them, other than maybe Andy Bing, which we'll talk about later on, who's a British medium, and he had this like electrode thing on his head, right? Let's get to it. So the show opens with Nicole DeHaas strapped to a chair in the booth, semi-booth. However, what it does not show is her torso and upper body being strapped to the chair. Now, if you recognize that, yes, she's strapped down, her hands can't go anywhere, and you could hear the Velcro, one of those things. However, at the end of her seance, she said something like, oh, it was clipped before and now it's not clipped. I don't know how much movement here because she was not strapped to the chair, that she couldn't get at it, with her hands over here or whatever, if she could do this, or I don't know. That brings us to the next point in why does the whole room have to be dark in that type of trance? In my opinion, it doesn't. The black box should be sufficient in creating a darkness, in creating perception, like lack of perception, right? For instance, when we do a sensory deprivation, we go in the black box, and I've been in the black box. Hers is more like a curtained off little area, I guess, but it shouldn't matter. That should be dark enough for her, because she's really the only one that needs to be in the darkened area. And if she is manifesting or producing ectoplasm behind the screen, no one's going to see it anyway. There's a little bit of healthy skepticism. And I want to say, everybody, like I said before in the previous episode reviews, I'm an open-minded skeptic. I'm not saying that it's my way or the highway. Absolutely not, because I've not experienced everything. However, from my perspective and my knowledge of seance and trance, there could be some hanky-panky going on here, right? Keep in mind, I wasn't there, and so I could not witness or hear anything other than her voice. So there you go. Moving on. It is said that physical seances must be conducted in absolute darkness, but I have found that to be a fallacy. Again, as I mentioned last week, I have never seen ectoplasm, never. And I've sat in a crap ton of seances. I've seen some master channelers, absolutely. Dead trance channelers, absolutely. But I've yet to see ectoplasm. I've seen things move. For instance, I have a tall trumpet, which in the olden days, it was thought that we would put in an old trumpet in the seance room because spirit could manifest louder voices through the trumpet. And the trumpet that I have has a ring, luminescent ring around the bottom, so that if it moves, you can actually see it. And I have seen my trumpet move, and other people have seen it too, but only like an inch. So what the heck? An inch is an inch. So things can happen in a seance room. I've seen apports, which is spelled APPORTS, where we're gathered in a circle, and something was not in the center of the room at the beginning of the evening, but then when we're done, there was coins on the floor. We didn't hear the coins. No one was walking around that I know of. And keep in mind, our room wasn't dark. It was hazy, so you can still see. You could easily see if someone was walking around or hear them, right? So we just don't know. All right, now, so it does help that the medium is in total darkness due to sensory deprivation, which I mentioned earlier. So when you're in the black box, keep in mind the black box can be a box. It can be a curtained off area. It can be something that is like vented like an old refrigerator. Seriously, it can be any kind of weird thing like that. So there's sensory deprivation, and we all know that when you take away someone's sight, the hearing becomes more acute, and vice versa. Same thing. So when I've only been in the black box a couple times because not too many people have them. And while I was in New York, I had the privilege to sit in a black box. Gosh, it was probably about 15 years ago now, 10 to 15 years ago. And while I was a professional and accomplished medium, I was really surprised at the quality of the evidence that came through. Really, really surprised. Just that sensory deprivation is enough for the spirit world to take hold and woohoo, like we're going gangbusters here. You could do the same thing with your eyes closed, couldn't you? Because more often than not, the black box is not going to stop sounds. If someone coughs or someone sneezes, the medium logically could hear it, unless they're way out of trance in often la la land somewhere, right? If that's the case, it would take a lot of energy for the medium to come out of the trance. So my 2 cents. During Nicole DeHaas's channeling, the seance, I guess, the first spirit who comes through is Silver Cloud, which that is who I would assume. Now, I don't know Nicole, so I can't say for sure. However, usually the control spirit is either your master teacher or your protecting guide is your gatekeeper. They're not often the same, one and the same. But anyway, so the silver cloud is that for her, keeping her safe, has really not a lot to do with the physical nuances of what she's prepping to do. However, if it is her gatekeeper that's taking care of her, the gatekeeper allows in those specific spirit people. Allows in is in allowing them into her, because that gatekeeper will understand the safety, what Nicole's going through. Now, keep in mind, for instance, if Nicole was not feeling well, first of all, she shouldn't be doing the seance. But if she were not feeling well, or if she had a cough or whatever, if her tummy was upset, 9 times out of 10, either you will not be able to channel or kind of leave. And at the same time, you will not be able to go down deep enough where certain higher level spiritual beings can come through clearly. They aren't going to hurt her. Now, I know after the seance, she mentions that it takes her probably half hour or so to kind of get back. And I understand that, because when you're done channeling, you are kind of spacey. And really the best thing to do is to have something to drink, nibble on something heavy like maybe like a cracker or a piece of meat or something dense that will reground you. It's just my opinion. I find that very helpful. So I don't understand. Well, let me put it this way. So I do understand why it takes her that long if she does not do any of these grounding methods. Okay. So there's a big difference in, like, let's ground ourselves. That kind of connects us to the world of spirit and keeps us here. But it's light. So once spirit has control, or once they've left control, it takes a bit of energy, because you're like, I don't want to say dizzy, but you're just out of it. You're just kind of out of it. So then the second spirit that comes forward is this little Tommy. And there's been a lot of conversation about the authenticity because of Tommy's voice. I understand that spirit uses our vocal cords. And if they enter within our body, then their energy will affect those vocal cords in different ways. I am not saying yay or nay to the different voices, because I know myself that the voices change, because I've had recordings of myself done. Not to that extent, but that's not to say it can't happen. So while it seems hokey, and I get it, boy, I understand, because at first I was like, what the hell is going on here? Who am I to say that that's not the case? Yeah. So last week I talked about that in to a little bit of an extent, and I did mention that I too have a boy who's a spirit guide, and he's also 8. He's also 8. I think Tommy was 8 or 9 or something like that. Anyways, first of all, I've never channeled my I call him one of my joy guides. He doesn't have a voice to that extent. At least I'm not channeled in that manner. Okay. I have channeled him. His name is Johnny. I have channeled him, but my voice does get lighter like this, but not squeaky, but it's more light. It's because you can feel the energy change in this. So it was just like that, where I've had some men in spirit come through and their voice, it does not get as low as Silver Cloud, but does speak more kind of like forceful, just forceful, that kind of thing. So that doesn't really change too much, because they are still affecting or using your vocal cords, right? Let's put it this way. The larger the vocal cords, the deeper the voice. Physical fact. The tinier the vocal cords, the higher the voice, right? So along with spirit interacting with your energy and your physical apparatus, there you go. Am I saying it's real? I don't know. Also, on that note, I want you to keep in mind that spirit guides, just as anyone in the world of spirit, can appear at any age, compared to be any age. And keeping in mind a spirit guide who appears as a child is no less intelligent or knowledgeable than one who appears very old. That just is the way that they choose to appear to us. Okay. It is said, and I've heard this millions of times, that everyone in spirit is 30 years of age. Well, to be honest with you, I think it's a bunch of crap. However, spirit do appear to me and to other mediums as well in one of three ways. The age they were when they passed away, the age they felt the best, which is probably around 25 to 35, or the age they would have been if they had still been living. So it really is a guessing game as to who the spirit person is. So the medium kind of has to feel what relationship they're in. So sorry, I got a little off track there. So the third spirit that comes through is Frida. This is where I have trouble grasping a truthful exercise here. Frida comes in talking about a man that is present, a spirit man that is present, but she doesn't understand him because he speaks a different language. That I think is bogus. I really do. That one I would call her out on because logically you would think the communication between multiple spirit people would be really clear. At least clearer than spirit talking to a medium, right? So if I can have your grandpa here that came from Poland talking to me, sometimes they'll sound a word out. So I'll have to kind of give someone a word that I don't know what it means, but it sounds like bushka or baba la la la, whatever. So sometimes they'll give me a word and I'll have to kind of sound it out and see if the client can understand that or interpret that. But more often than not, probably 90% of the time anyways, if spirit didn't speak English or broken English, they'll show me pictures, which are universal, right? They'll make me feel something physically, like maybe I'll feel a heart attack or I might feel a stroke. So there's so many different ways. They might make me smell things or even taste something. There's so many different ways to communicate with spirit other than language. So if I can do it with a spirit person and get a damn good reading, why can't spirit do that amongst each other? That should be like an instantaneous knowledge. Spirits speak, I would assume, and this is what I've been told also, spirits speak to each other telepathically. So telepathic communication can be sight, sound, taste, smell, feeling. It doesn't have to be words. I need to call her out on that one. Further down in the show, Aman, A-M-A-N, the Indian man, I think he's from India. And he's been at this retreat all week. And during this time, he's been talking to just about anybody who wants to listen about his father who's recently passed. So this is information that he's got, shows him talking multiple times to multiple different people about his father who's recently passed. And however, in the show, we don't hear a lot about why, because he doesn't know why his father passed. He doesn't know how his father passed. So there's not been a lot of information other than that, at least that I can see. We only see so much of it. We don't see all the stuff that goes on in the background. So we don't know exactly what was said that hasn't been aired. So I have to give them a little bit of leeway that way. In this seance, Frida comes through. She talks about the man to her right or left. I forget what it was. And this is Aman. And he seems very touched by the information that's coming through. So we have to look at the benefit of the reading being just as important as the evidence that's coming through. Because obviously, even though this reading through this spirit made Aman feel better, there wasn't any evidence other than someone who recently passed, a man who recently passed. In that same setting, he did say, however, that he could physically feel something tapping his forehead. Now, that's interesting. That is interesting because spirit can touch you and it feels like feathers, or sometimes it feels like someone's actually touched your shoulder or whatever. You could swear that there was a hand there or something like that. So I find that interesting more so than the evidence that came through. So then we jump to the Institute of Metaphysics or Metaphysique. And they talk about the red light seance, red light experiments, and physical manifestation. When I used to do seances and channeling, I would do it in a red light. And because it said that if there's anything that manifests like ectoplasm or something like that, it can be seen in a red light. And even though I've never experienced ectoplasm myself or saw it myself, that's what it's been known. So I just believe it because I don't have anything to refute it, right? So red light, and we talked about this last week, that you can see facial transformation, facial transfiguration, where spirit will actually sit on the medium and you can see the medium's face kind of morph into something. It could be completely different. Like I could turn into this man who's really tall and skinny and has really big cheekbones and a beard like Abraham Lincoln, right? So it's very possible that all this can happen and people can see it as they should. They talked really shortly about this medium, Stuart Alexander, who did the red light seance. Very, very little about him. And I'm really surprised that they didn't go into more detail there. Earlier on, like first or second episode, I wondered at the connection between the main characters here, like the medium or all the mediums, and this Mike Alexander, and then Flint or whatever her name is, I don't know what her name is. Kind of like the hostess. And so I wondered at that, like how they all got together and decided to do this or were asked to participate in this. And as I said earlier, there's so many different ways that these readings, this seance and there's so many different ways that this could manifest. And I really felt in that we kind of missed the boat here because there's so much more that can be added or expanded upon. So that's why I'm kind of hoping for a season 2. Anyways, and then here comes our buddy, Mike Anthony, the guy I called a twit, who Mike is getting a little bit better sometimes. Now, keep in mind, he's an actor. Right? Doesn't mean that all actors are twits. Doesn't mean that all actors have put together this show. I don't know. Mike gets together with his mom and his sister and has this little mini seance. And the voice that comes through sounds like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. Okay, so this is supposed to be their dad, and it didn't sound anything like him, obviously, because no one sounds like that, for God's sake. But they were moved by it. it just sounded frightening to me. Like, what the hell? And every word was, and then a word, and then a word. And I'm not saying that that's not possible, because it is. And sometimes spirit do speak a bit choppy like that. But I still thought it was just weird. It was just weird. So anyways, it was just such a strange thing. It sounded frightening because it felt like, you know how when somebody's in pain, you just like, blah, blah, blah. You know, that kind of thing. So it sounded like pain for me. And first of all, once spirit passes over, there's no more pain, obviously. But his voice certainly makes him sound like he's out of breath. Very general information came through. At least that's what's shown in this episode during that seance. What they showed was like, I miss you, I didn't want to go, and I'm sorry, blah, 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 stuff like that. And I'm thinking, oh, bullshit. Sorry, guys. But they seemed thrilled with it. And you would think, with as skeptic as Mike is, there had to have been something there that either wasn't aired, but why wouldn't they air something that's fantastic evidence? Why wouldn't they air that? I just don't know about this one. Don't know about that one either. Now, here's the next thing. Dun, dun, dun. This was the best part of all. This was the best part. The next segment is where Nicole DeHaas is in Massachusetts. Again, our buddy Mike is asking for specific information that's not readily known to Nicole. He didn't say what it was this time. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't the hair. That was last week. This was something else. I don't know if it was mentioned. Do you guys know if it was mentioned? I don't remember. Now, I do have to say there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with prepping your ancestors. Nothing wrong with it at all. Matter of fact, just this afternoon, a client who has a reading coming up is saying, Lisa, how can I ensure that spirit is there? I think we'll start talking to them now. Right? Start talking to them. However, don't put parameters around what's right and what's wrong, because it's really up to them what they want to talk about. But all I heard there was, I love you, I didn't want to go, blah, blah, blah. I'd be really disappointed. I would be really disappointed. So anyways, I'm hoping in the back scenes, stuff that wasn't aired was much more validating than what I saw. I'm hoping. Again, testing the medium it's probably not smart, because what you're doing actually is, again, like I said last week, you're putting parameters around what you want spirit to say just to validate it. And if there was exceptional evidence, which was his word last week, exceptional, if there's exceptional information and evidence that comes through, but they don't mention that one clue word, like what's my dog's name, especially if the sitter waits until the end of the reading, then what's happened is that sitter has just invalidated almost everything. Because it's that clue word or the dog's name that the medium didn't get wrong. So the last thing on that list is what's going to be remembered, unfortunately, instead of the exceptional stuff. Yeah. So it's not really fair to the medium, nor is it fair to the world of spirit. The medium, again, only gives what she gets or he gets. In this event, she is trance channeling. There's no physical mediumship going on here. She even says that this is a mental mediumship skill or tool or whatever, experiment. So again, physical mediumship is a much stronger form of mediumship, and where spirit uses the medium's physical body and all its parts. Mental mediumship, however, is using the medium's knowledge and the brain and the memories and things like that. So this is what's happening here in this session in Massachusetts. She is using her mental mediumship capabilities. So she's channeling spirit. Spirit is not entering her body, so to speak, but she is kind of out there. So she's accepting and flowing. And this, if you were in my recent inspirational speaking and writing class, is very much like that. What I found interesting was Nicole's posture, which some of you guys probably didn't even notice. All of a sudden, she was sitting back like this in her chair, and all of a sudden she's hunched over like this. Very interesting. So she is being affected by the world of spirit if she wasn't playing games, right? She was being affected by it. And I understand that because I've had that happen to me too. And very often when I do a reading, I might go like this, which I mentioned last week. Like there's somebody with a mustache here, or I might all of a sudden, I keep doing this because he was like James Dean and had his hair slicked back. And so things like that are very telling. Those things can be just as evidential and heartwarming and important as evidential information to validate what spirit is present. So you don't need to go into a trance for that, obviously. Then shortly after the sitting begins, Nicole DeHaas provides evidence that was publicly known in this session. Oh my gosh. Hook it up and fishing and something like in a green car. Like this is pretty bang on evidence. And I'm like, whoa, she is a good medium. Maybe not a great channel, but she's a good, really good medium. Then we find out afterwards that Hook It Up was on their menu in the restaurant that they own. The information that she brought forward could all be found on the man's Facebook page that she read for. The green car, all that kind of stuff. Someone's recent passing, that was all found on his Facebook page. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. The only thing that could have saved the day there is if she came up with something that wasn't, or not if she came up with, if spirit had given her something that was not widely known. Like, what did the sitter just have for breakfast? Who did he just talk to on the phone in the car on the way here? Did they just see a broken down bus on the road? Things like that. Shows that spirit's with you all the time, even when you're not expecting it, right? These things and more cannot be seen on social media or on the website or anything like that, okay? So anyways, the next segment is with Andy Bing. He is a British medium who teaches at Arthur Findlay College, and they're at the Psychical Research Association. And they had this like vibratory or this cap on his head with all these little buttons and things like that. Now they showed all the brain waves and stuff like that, which I found interesting. However, they didn't really say a lot about, for instance, when he went into trance mode or when he started doing a reading, were the wavelengths different? And they said that they were a little bit, but they didn't show any great validation there or something like that. And one of the things I found interesting was they didn't mention in that segment about the communication with spirit being more of a spiritual place than a brain thing, right? So if Andy was thinking something, physically thinking something, you're going to see brainwaves, right? Of course you are. And there's always brainwaves, obviously. But if he's focusing on something and really concentrating on something, you're seeing the brainwaves go crazy. Blah, blah, blah. However, if he's in trance or if he's doing mediumship where he's in constant state of flow and not engaging in the communication, would there be much of a brainwave activity? They didn't mention that, and I thought that should be looked into more. Because we know, for instance, spirit tap in to our memories, us, and I say ours and is in mediums. So they have something to pull from. And I know, for instance, when spirit taps into my head or taps into my memory, because they're pulling from my memory to give a message to the sitter. They do that because they know it's in our memory box. Well, actually, I say this and that's wrong. It's a little more like here. All right. So there's got to be a difference there. Whether we're going from delta to theta to beta or whatever, there's got to be a difference there. And they didn't, I think, talk enough about that. Again, maybe season 2, but that might be a little dry for most people, but whatever. So I wish they would have gone a little bit deeper in that. Then they go to a segment with the medium Laura Lynn Jackson, and she did get the I guess the lady's name, her daughter's name was Katie, something like that, and Laura Lynn was saying Carrie or something close to that. So as I said last week, names are the most difficult thing. They really are. And I think part of the time it's difficult because that's what most mediums want. So they get in their own way. Very often they will provide sounds of letters so the medium doesn't get into their left brain. Or they might provide for instance, for me, they might provide the beginning and ending of a word. So I would have maybe suggested K with an IE sound at the end, Carrie, Katie, Carly, blah, blah, blah. And they also, for me, provide the consonants. So I might hear the KT or the KR or the CR. So, and I just know that's how the spirit people speak to me. And for other mediums, they might not get it that way. It's just the way that they work with me. So much of the rest of the reading, other than the necklace, was important because that's what Mom needed to hear. Remember I said the compassion, the personality would come through, just as valid as the piece of evidence. And that is very healing for Mom, one, because that's what she needs to hear, but because Laura Lynn also provided the evidence. Good reading, real good reading. So the bringing through the essence of the spirit world forward is so important. And I think she did a very good job on that. I think that she did a good job. So do I think Mike has valid stance? Yes and no. You know, I don't like the way he does things. One, because he's uneducated and chooses not to educate himself. Uneducated is one thing, but then with all that he's seen, obviously, and all that he's learned, he should know better. He should know better, or he should be taught better. All right. I do have Connie coming on in a second, and I want to bring up the fact that I do have a mediumship class starting online. It is going to be I think it's the Tuesdays or Wednesdays in April and May. So it hasn't even been put on my website yet, but keep that in mind. All right. Connie, I don't have your video rolling.
Oh.
Let me ask you to start it. Did you see it? There you are. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, sweetheart. You got a question?
Wonderful as always. You hit on so many great things. A couple small. If I can ask more than one, that kind of brief. Yeah. As far as the black box, something I wondered. I thought I heard them say something that it helps to build the power. I'm wondering if like even as a child, you like to be in a little. If I go sit in my little closet, will that help me develop my abilities?
Yep.
Okay.
You don't need a fancy black box to help build the energy. They were singing songs, and that just kind of lightens the energy. Is it necessary? No, it's not. And to be honest with you, the seances that I've sat in, it kind of makes people uncomfortable because some people don't like to sing out loud, right? Where playing some nice music would be beneficial, right? If they want to sing along, great. If not, that's fine too. But the needing to have that black box, I don't buy it. I really don't, Connie. And I hate to say that, but because, spirit can walk through those black boxes, right? They can transport themselves through the walls of those boxes. So how is that going to help them manifest? I don't know. It just confuses me. First of all, it confuses me.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about seance, but I just mean even as far as developing, because I live alone, so I can sit in the dark by myself. Right. But I almost wonder if maybe being in a small space would help me to connect, because I've yet to do that on my own yet.
Okay. So what the hell? Give it a shot. Right?
Well.
What the hell? Give it a shot. Is it necessary? No, it is not. So do you live in well, now with COVID, that's pretty much, forget that. I was going to say a development circle might be great for you.
Yeah, I've actually been a little bit of one, but now we're going to end it already. It was just more of but I feel my guidance is to meditate more and then join a circle.
You may be now see, you did really good in the inspirational writing and speaking class. You may be, well, I do think you're a physical medium. Let me put it that way.
You do or don't?
Yeah, no, I do. I do. Okay. And so learning how to channel might be an idea for you if there's someone local, right? I don't think that maybe a weekend workshop is your answer, but if that's what you can find, that's a really good place to start. Okay. Yeah. It would be a good place to start. At least you know the method, that kind of thing. Yeah. But would it be, that would help you a lot.
Well, thank you. Would it be better to start just trying to do mediumship first, though, before channeling? Isn't channeling more advanced, or?
Not necessarily. Nope.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
You have, I know you, and you have a lot of literary knowledge behind you. You might not have a lot of experience behind you, but you have a lot of the book learning behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and I'm not going to say you don't need that here, but you're already a natural medium. I think just learning how to turn it on and turn it off would be beneficial. And then probably taking a channeling class.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I've had natural experiences all through my life with medium, seeing love come to me, but I need to learn how to do it when I'm trying to do it or not trying, whatever you want to say.
Exactly. But turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
So one other question is, and you mentioned this the other day, and I either didn't quite catch it or I forgot. Well, two-part. You said tonight there's 5 types of guides, and you just mentioned 2. But then the other thing is, you mentioned the other day there's a reason why people sometimes have a child guide. What is the reason for having a child again?
The reason for having a child guide is often the fact that someone who appears as a child is not combative or non-argumentative, that kind of thing. All right. They don't have like that dictator type of personality. They're more relaxed. They're more fluid. They're more able to have fun with the learning, right? So there's different ways, as we know, there's different ways to teach people. We can joke and, have great lessons behind some things. And other times we need to, buckle down and study, where the joy guide sometimes helps us, no, all the time. If they step in, I know that there's a lesson to be learned, but maybe the lesson needs to be lighthearted, right? Or will come through in a lighthearted way. And that's where our joy guides often come in. And for me, for instance, a joy guide helps me find the inane in the stupid stuff that I wind up getting myself into. Yeah. And we learn from those goofy things, right? We learn from those things. But the spirit guide says, if my little Johnny is there, then I know that, okay, This is not a deal breaker here. It's not something to get my panties all in a bundle over, but there's still a lesson behind all this goofy stuff.
Okay, thank you so much. Now the 5 types of guides. We have a master, we have a protector, which is the gatekeeper.
Well, some people think that their master guide is the gatekeeper. That's just, personally, that's not what I've experienced in my own channeling. But like I said, I can't say that's not going to be different. So for someone else, we also have an alchemist, which is like our doctor, a physical doctor, right? And then we have a protecting guide, and then we have a doctor teacher who's like our professor. And that guy's main goal is just to bring in temporary guides for us to learn specific things. Okay, so you have master teacher, alchemist, protecting guide, joy guide, and your doctor teacher. Those are your 5 static guides. Now I'm going off of the spiritualist training, spiritualist teachings. Okay, but that's a whole nother class. That's it's really in depth. So anyways, but in a nutshell, ta-da, there you go.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I think that's my list.
Okay, honey. Thank you so much for chiming in and asking questions.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, honey. Talk to you soon. So again, the mediumship class, as I zoom through my calendar here, starts the 6th of April. That is Tuesday nights, and ends the 25th of May. So it's 8 weeks. Do you have to attend all 8 weeks? No, but it's preferred because there's lots of exercises. It is an online class, and you just partner up with a partner in the class, and we'll run it through a Facebook group. So you will need to be on Facebook for that. But gosh, anything and everything can be covered, but everybody's a medium. Everybody can learn how to do this. Everybody. And of course, the accuracy is simply dependent upon the energy that you're going to put into it. There you go. So my kids, until next week, same time, same channel. God bless. Bye-bye.